Perfect. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this panel session. So, as you just heard, for the next 30 minutes or so, we'll be focusing on the driving force for soaring valuation of APAC sports and sports tech companies. As I was quickly introduced before, my name is Ben, and I am very happy to be your panel moderator today. And I'd like to thank very much the CVCF for having me. I'm joined by a great group of people who are leading investors into this industry, among many others, of course. So everyone has been already introduced. I think with Cheng, we're the only ones who are away online. Actually, you are on the other side of the world from me because you're in LA. I'm in Paris, in France right now at the moment. We don't have that much time, so without any more talk, I'd like to dive into the questions that I have prepared for our guests today. And if that's okay with everyone within the panel, I'll go through them, and whoever among the panelists would like to answer them first, she or he can do it, of course. Feel free to jump in at any time. So the first question I have for you guys is, so we've witnessed a constant and strong increase in investments, whether from VC firms or private equity firms, in sports tech companies over the past few years. And of course, 2020 and 2021 were no exception, quite the opposite. Have you also observed this trend in your respective organizations? So again, feel free to pick up the mic, whoever wants to answer first.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ben, and maybe I'll go first. Definitely, we have seen a big surge of investments into sports and sports tech assets over the past few years. And in a way, it was even fueled by the pandemic, because the pandemic, all the restrictions, the lockdown, the travel blockage, so everything actually made it even more needed and necessary for digitalization of sports, more technology revamp of the whole entire industry, which make available a lot more investment opportunities. And from our Raine's perspective, for instance, we just completed the sale of Chelsea Football Club. That was the largest financing commitment into a single sports team ever. And that just signaled how hot the market is right now into this industry. And I think the main reasons that we think would be twofold. One is the investors are now finally starting to recognize the value of premium sports IPs, and they start to treat the sports assets, including the sports tech assets, as an investable asset class. And on top of that, that is the tech aspect that is across the entire industry. So the digitalization of IP and content, the digital media companies competition, joining the competition for media rights. We see a lot of deals going on right now in the US from the large media companies like Apple. And of course, the convergence of Web3 that we just looked at with sports. So all of these made it possible to greatly expand the opportunities for monetization around the sports IP that is already very valuable. So that greatly increased the return profile of a lot of these assets and made them more attractive to investors.
Thank you, Elsa, for your sharing. So definitely for us, we are also seeing a lot of activities in our space. So just to introduce our fund, Lion Rock Capital, we are a private equity fund, and we focus on consumer sports. We are focusing on the industry-leading overseas companies, but with little footprint in China, so that we can leverage our network and resources to help them expand in China. So definitely, we see that the global sportswear market has been growing rapidly. We are expecting it to grow from 295 billion US in 2021 to 395 billion in 2025. So that's a CAGR of 8 to 10%. And our cornerstone investor, Raine, the China's premier sports brand, has been also doing very well during COVID. So its revenue has gone up by 22% in first half 22, and Raine has been named the fastest growing brand by Brand Finance in April this year. So that's up 68% to a market brand valuation of $2 billion US. So we're definitely seeing a lot of activities, interesting opportunities in this space, especially after COVID. People have become more health conscious, and they would put more greater emphasis on sports, health, and wellness. So yeah, that's what we are seeing.
Okay, thank you. So maybe let me share. And I'm Eric, and I'm also the founder president of Esports Association of Hong Kong. Something very interesting is we founded association since 2015, and at that point of time, I still remember no one called us sport. Okay, we are simply you guys are playing video games. Okay, you are not sports. But something changed in recent years. That right now we all know that even in Asia game right now esports is kind of the sports, and I found a very interesting trend. In the day before or since then, I used to invest in the video game company, esports company, as well as some tech company as well. And in recent years, I found a very interesting trend is the e-sport industry right now, the day before, we think that we use the video game to make it become kind of the sports. But in recent 2 years, I can see there's another interesting trend is what we are doing is try to transform, using technology, to transform the traditional sports into e-sports. Something very interesting. And we find that the key element of doing this is making the traditional sports more entertaining, like esports. The reason why we always call esport is so emerging and the industry was working well because of the audience and the industrialization of the whole sport, that sports industry, okay? Although some people may still saying that, okay, like my wife, she always keeps saying that you are not doing sports. Come on, guys, you are still playing video games. But, me and my son always argue with her that we are doing sports right now. But anyway, we can see this trend is not only taught by us, but also proven by a lot of people as well, in the industry as well. I don't quote the name, but some of my friends work closely with even the central government of China. In recent years, you can see the policy change that they would like to transform the e-sport to become more something like we call virtual sports that combine the traditional sports, not only the video game, but also the traditional sports. One of very good example is since 8 years ago, I invest in a company called Golf Zone that actually is a golf simulator company. At that point of time, no one think that playing golf simulator is sport. Okay, but I have to say that right now, one of the very keen reason why in Korea so many ladies playing well in golf is because of this company. Actually, they groom the talent of young golfer by using that kind of simulator technology. And finally, it contributes to the success of the traditional sports as well. So you can see right now, the way that we're using the technology is somehow changing the whole industry of the sports. Not talking about the racing sports. That would be another classical example for how we do the talent calculation. The entry fee of playing racing is really high, and that make that kind of traditional sport facing some aging issue as well. But while using this kind of technology, I think that would be kind of another trend how to make the traditional sport industry more popular, and I think the industry more industry or professional as well.
Okay, if you want to say something, feel free.
Definitely, I love to tell a story too, So I'm going to start out with the story, okay? So around 2 years ago, out in Hong Kong, and through LinkedIn, I met a friend. His name is Larry. He ran a very successful e-commerce company that there's cater, specializes in tennis equipment. Okay, it's called ABB tennis. Anyway, we talk about tennis, obviously. He loved tennis. And he told me a story about like 8 years ago. So he was sitting somewhere in Washington, watching Wimbledon. And now, anyone who knows tennis probably heard of the name Hawkeye, the Hawkeye system. They call for email up, right? So Larry, 8 years ago, in 2014, he thought, hey, why can't we use smartphone to do what Hawkeye is doing now? Hawkeye is better. A smartphone is basically a camera with a CPU. So what he did, he flew all the way to China and Hong Kong. Now, we're talking again 2014. Now we're talking about, and he knows that 80% of the cell phone will make and designed in Hong Kong and China. So he went there. So he said, hey, he wants a solution. And to make the long story short, he spent a year and a half over in China and Hong Kong. To find a solution, he flew back to America, and he started another company called ABB Tennis, which I just talked about. So the moral of the story is that 8 years ago, people from America is already coming to APAC to look for ways to improve sport and sport tech, and it's kind of ironic. Here we are talking about how to jumpstart sport tech here. But having said all those, now our company has been very lucky that we have found one, which I would say, very unique company with unique technology in B2B security in Hong Kong. That actually, believe it or not, they have fulfilled Larry's vision. They were actually able to use cell phone or smartphone, whatever you want to call it, to do exactly what Hawkeye can do for a fraction of, like a Hawkeye will cost you $1 million US per course, by using a multiple iPhone, we talk about like $1,000 US. So $1,000 was $1 million. You do the math, right? So again, we're very lucky, and this company is very special. The one company I'm talking about right now in Hong Kong, because they're not really startup per se. They've been around for 7 or 8 years, and they were actually supported by the Hong Kong government. And I think people are not giving a whole lot of credit to the Hong Kong government because even 7 years ago they were already sponsoring a lot of sport tech companies. It's just that the media has never really talked about it. So I think this could be a really bright future for Hong Kong.
Thank you. I feel like we probably should need another hour for this panel because all the answers are so great. So thank you guys. I'll still move on to the next one that I have prepared for you. More, let's say, going into your investments, let's say, processes. When you are evaluating a potential investment into a sports tech company, like what are the metrics or the innovative aspects that you focus on specifically? Again, anyone who wants to tackle the question first, feel free.
So I'll go first. Oh,
Lady first.
Thank you. So for us, there are many aspects that we look at. So one of the key aspects will be the growth potential. So we like athleisure and we like outdoor. Because after COVID, as I mentioned earlier, the boundaries between live, work, and sports have been more flexible. So people can actually pop out for a quick jog in between Zoom meetings. And sports and casual apparel has become increasingly acceptable in professional environment. So we see that this global sportswear sector has been growing rapidly. And Clark's, one of our portfolio companies, actually has introduced an athleisure line recently with sneakers and Gore-Tex functional shoes. And they've been doing very well. And I'm actually a big fan. I like to wear my Clark sneakers to work almost every day. And they are very comfortable. And other aspect that we like is we like companies with a strong e-commerce and DTC angle. Because nowadays people will shop in omni-channel. So brands need to have a robust online presence as well as relevant physical setup that's revolve around experience so that the customers can move seamlessly and instantly in the digital and the physical space. So Li Ning has been doing very well in the DTC area, and in first half 22, I think 30% of the revenue is from e-commerce and 23% is from retail. So of course, there are many other factors that we look at when we assess the opportunities. We like companies with a strong management team, with high entry barriers, and we like companies where we can leverage our over 30 years of operating experience and over 7,000 points of sales in China to generate significant value add.
And maybe to consent now.
Oh, okay, sorry guys. Okay, so, again, SportsTech, right? What is SportsTech? SportsTech is about innovation. And what is innovation without protection? So my rule, I have two golden rules when it comes to investing in a tech company, especially in sports tech company. As I always ask the CEO one question: show me your patent, your IP, your intellectual properties, and then I will hire two lawyers to actually examine the IP. And I would ask my lawyers, from 1 to 10, give me 1 being this IP is useless, forget about it. 10 being unbreachable, and I will use Google as the example. I have nothing against Google, by the way. So, for example, I will ask the lawyer. At 10, if Google accidentally infringe on this company's IP, the lawyer should be able to say, even Google have to say, I'm sorry. Either I'm going to buy your company or I'm going to, pay whatever penalty that I have to, So for me, that is rule number 1. And then rule number 2, always go back to the IP again. I have to look at the IP and say, hey, what else can it do? Can the IP be applied to another sport? Can it apply to another industry? And I think that is extremely valuable. That makes the company it can grow exponentially in the future. So.
Yeah, I really agree on the importance and the value of IP. I think on top of what Karen and Kunzing just said, I want to add, because we are an investor and an advisor at the same time. So actually we can see what other investors are looking for in addition to what we are looking for. I would say on top of all those things, there are 3 potentials that people are really looking for right now. One is the potential to tap into high growth markets. So that would be, for instance, mainland China, Southeast Asia, even South America. So some of those very high growth, untapped emerging markets. And second potential is the potential to have convergence with other forms of content and entertainment. So that would be, for instance, the potential to go into esports, and also the potential to co-produce a TV show, which is very popular nowadays. So all of those potentials that could increase the value of the core IP. And thirdly, the third potential would be any kind of innovative monetization revenue streams. So that would include, IoT devices or fan engagement, both on Web 2 and Web 3. And also even on the metaverse front, having some virtual space for community gathering, spectating of the games. So all of those can be, if there are plans to exploit those potentials, that would be more interesting.
Yeah, I can't agree more with you. Actually, from my point of view as an investor, I think one of the key points, of course, we're looking for the rapid growth. I mean, the potential growth of the industry. But if I have to pick a keywords in this kind of sport, I think the entertainment or the entertaining it is, I think is the key for the growth as well. Let me take an example. Like the SportsTech, maybe say the simulator technology that I've mentioned, that it not only helping the sport itself to play better or the professional player to play better, but it helped the people to spectating the sport in a more interesting way. And I think it tap into a potential that more people can connect to that sport, and it create a huge industry that the traditional way cannot do. I think that is the key for that kind of technology, and we are looking for. And even in Hong Kong policy address, last week, our CE have also mentioned in the sports development in Hong Kong. For the strategy that talk about how to promote. That they have two keywords. One is urban sports. That he mentioned. That kind of the concept of urban sport is how we could convert or make those new sports become interesting and become more accessible to the ordinary people. Say, like the example that I've called golf or even racing or some other sports, that somehow due to the space limitation or wherever limitation, that some are not maybe so accessible or even people are interested to play. But I think this kind of technology right now may enable us to have more choices and even could make that more interesting, and it untap a totally new area for the industry to grow. So I think that we could looking forward for it as well.
Thank you very much, Eric. So I'm looking at the time, and we don't have much more left, but I'll try to squeeze in one more question. And it's a great thing because all of you guys the answers that you have are really great, full of insight. So thank you very much. So the last one I probably will have time to ask you is, we've seen, as I mentioned before, a really not a bubble, let's say, but a huge surge of investment and valuation in 2020, 2021. As probably a lot of you guys had expected, it had to kind of turn around a bit, and I think 2022 has been the case. Has this current downtrend in investment and valuation, has it been influencing your decision-making when you evaluate potential deals in the sports and sports tech companies? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, in my opinion, just in my opinion, right? I think even now, even as we speak, I think overall around the world, not just Asia Pacific, even America, I think sports tech is undervalued, and we are only in technology wise, we are only scraping the surface of what sport can really do to improve sport. So I think we got a long way there. I wouldn't even care. Right now, I would not even look at the valuation. I don't think it's a concern. I think it is undervalued right now.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's more about specific markets or specific verticals that we're looking into, because it's not just the tech itself. It's about how, because tech is used for enablement. It's about the market that it's going to serve and the potential monetization space that it's going to bring by using that technology. So I think it's more about assessing whether that technology and the market that it represents would have high potential or would make sense for you to invest at this valuation at this point of time. So for us, for instance, when we look at Southeast Asia, it's a very mobile-first market. It has very high acceptance for Web3 business models. So we can look at more tech enablement play in those spaces in this market and feel quite comfortable with the growth potential. So I think, for instance, for mainland China, that would be a little bit different. We will look at something more on the fitness, outdoor, youth training, or even younger age kids sports training kind of area. So it can be quite different according to the market that you're looking at.
Personally, I think, let me share my experience for these 2 years. Okay, the only investment in recent 2 years for me that still going up is the e-sport and entertainment related parts. Actually, for the other investment also not doing quite well recently. But one of the reasons, I think the key reason is I think the sport tech and for this industry is still emerging. I totally agree with the previous speaker that it is still undervalued. Okay, it's still emerging and growing very, very fast. And I think less emergent. You can see right for the last panel session, we are talking about the Web3 and Metaverse concept. Imagine, say the technology that I've just mentioned, say those simulator technology or those technology that help to transform the sport technology. How about we bring it one step forward? Maybe in future, we bring it into the metaverse concept, and maybe people could connect and compete with the others, not only, physically, not only simply face-to-face, maybe using the metaverse or wherever to connect virtually. So all this kind of concepts still yet to explore. And I think all these elements bring together could bring in even more audience and even more market opportunity. But not only within the sport industry, we could be able to cross over, for the other industry as well. And by thinking in this logic, I suppose that this kind of sport tax, I think, still have yet to a lot of room for growing in coming years.
So for us, we tend to look at more like sports and consumer brands. So we are actually seeing that the valuation gap between buyers and sellers are converging. So companies that used to be asking for high teens EBITDA multiples are actually open to look at mid to high single-digit multiples. So we think that the valuations are getting more reasonable. And we believe that there will be attractive entry points in the next 6 to 18 months. And we have a strong pipeline, and our team has been busy looking at deals.
Thank you, Karen. I think we're getting very, very close to the end. Maybe I can squeeze one last one, and maybe one or two of you guys can answer it quickly. I just wanted to end on maybe checking with you guys, with your experience, what has Hong Kong to offer to promising and fast-growing sports and sports tech companies in terms of market positioning and fundraising opportunities, for example? If one of you guys quickly can tackle that one, that would be great.
Maybe let me add on this. Because I talk to some government officials frequently, especially for the new bureau, which is the Cultural, Sports and Tourism Bureau. One of the major jobs that actually they are doing in sports industry, as well as for the sport tech related part, is in Chinese they call 五化. I wonder you guys have heard it. That is 普及化、城市化、精英化。專業化、產業化. In English, that is how to promote the sports to the community, as well as to promote Hong Kong as a center for mega event, to support the elite sports, the professionalization of the sports, as well as the development of the industry. I can tell you, when I talk to the government officials, they all admit that in order to do this, we cannot do it from using simply the advantages right now we have. Actually, we have to add the technology element. You can see actually the sport tech element can connect all to all these 5 objectives together. And I suppose that I think I'm running out of time. So I suppose that in Hong Kong, as we have this kind of policy, as I know that there are more policy as well as detailed maybe funding, etc., to come together to support development of this kind of sport technology to achieve this policy aim. So I think that Hong Kong do have an advantage, I suppose, to become one of this kind of sport tech hub in coming future. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much, all of you guys. It was a very, I think, insightful and panel discussion, and I think the crowd think that will be it for us today. And I'll try to make sure we finish on time. Actually, yes.
Thank you.